Hello, welcome to the showcase. My name's Shaun Martin and I have 45 years experience in the field of entertainment. I'm here to share with you some of the greatest talents and experience in Clubland. Hopefully we're going to learn from each other, but more importantly, you need to subscribe to my channel. I thank you for watching these episodes, and today we've got a fantastic one. I'd like to introduce a very good friend of mine, and I mean that from my heart, Mr. Geoff Aday.
Hello.
How are you, Geoff?
I'm okay, yes. See you?
Yes, I'm very well, and I'm really pleased to be doing this podcast. It's not often you can do a podcast with your good mate. I just want to tell the viewers a bit about you because Geoff lives in Hull, but he comes from the northeast. He's going to tell us all about that in a moment. And at the beginning of this podcast, you'll have seen a short clip of Geoff and how you can contact him if you want to book him and things like that. Now, Geoff, just give us a brief history about you, please, sir.
Yeah, well, I suppose I started off as a child singing in school shows. I went for music lessons for playing keyboards. I've had a guitar. I'm still useless at playing it, but I've had a guitar since I was about 14. I've been a sound engineer. I've been a lighting technician. I've been a karaoke guy. And I met my partner at karaoke. She was a customer. And we got together originally to be a duo. And that did happen when we moved down to Hull, which was over 30 years ago now, something like that. And we've been working together since then, not always in the more recent years. I've been doing a lot more solo work. At the early days, it was a duo, and we're still a duo now, but just not as frequent. And for the last 30 years, been working the pubs, clubs, casinos, holiday parks, you name it.
Well, I've had the pleasure of being with you in many situations at your home. We used to have chats, and I've seen you live, and you certainly rock the crowd. You know what songs to choose from. What's your opinion of the state of the business nowadays?
Well, it's obviously not the same as it used to be. I think that it's gone through various different stages. Obviously, years ago, everybody sang with an organ and a drum, organist and a drummer in a club. Now we've got, high-tech backing tracks that are nearly as good as the original songs. So that's been taken away. A lot of the musicians have been lost through that. I think budget has made that a lot of bands have gone and been replaced by, solo artists or whatever, because it's cheaper for the venues. And I think that the singers themselves have changed. I think there's a lot less emphasis on being an entertainer as such. I don't think that showmanship, in many cases, has gone. And technology's probably played a big part in that, with everybody having the lyrics on their iPad and sort of reading them live rather than learning the songs and things. So I think, it's gone through a big change, I think.
There's some great singers and there's some great entertainers. You're a mix of both.
Yeah.
And would you say it's more important to be a good singer, or is it more important to be an entertainer?
I think it's equally as important. I think we are, I would say I'm more of a singer and less of an entertainer. In the way that when I'm talking about being an entertainer, obviously when you're singing, you're entertaining, but being a personality entertainer, some people, their emphasis is on, talking to the crowd, telling jokes in between the songs and that kind of thing. And I don't see myself as a comedian, but I do think I know how to speak to the crowd and how to involve people and how to create an atmosphere. So I think that there's equally important, but depending on whether your talents lie with, joke telling and speaking, or whether your talents lie with purely singing, it'll depend on what proportions and balance that gives.
Geoff, do you prefer to be a solo singer, or do you prefer to work with a band?
Well, it depends, I think. I like doing both, It depends what we're doing and what the venue is and all that kind of thing, But it's nice to have a big mixture just to, I suppose, give a bit of variation. When you're solo, you can kind of do whatever songs you want and you can make it up as you go along even. and change everything to suit the audience. Whereas when you're with a band, everything's a bit more cast in stone, isn't it? Prearranged, So there's advantages to both, and I think a mixture is a good thing,
Yeah, I know that I wasn't going to kind of like touch on this today, Geoff, but you also have a tribute act, which we're going to cover on another podcast, which is But Out of All You Do, the best meatloaf there is. But we'll talk about that, and I hope the viewers will look forward to that one in a few more episodes later down the line. What I want to ask you, Geoff, is it important to have the right gear, to look perfect, to dress perfect, and have everything in one package? Or does it not matter to look, to dress right nowadays? Or can you just go on stage in jeans and a t-shirt?
I think it depends, me personally, if I'm singing in a pub full of people who've been drinking, watching football all day, then I think it's appropriate to wear jeans and a t-shirt. I think you would look a bit out of place coming on in a tuxedo, for example. So, but then you'll get like situations where maybe it's appropriate to wear a suit, or it's appropriate to wear a tuxedo, or whatever. So it does depend on the event. I'm not a one for putting too much importance on having costumes, if you like. Well, costumes for the tribute show, of course, but having costumes for stage for just being a normal singer. I think, if you could sing as long as you're smart and you're clean and tidy, I don't think anybody's going to be paying that much attention to what type of jacket you've got on. But, so it depends on the circumstances, I suppose.
How far do you travel, Geoff?
Well, at the moment, usually within 100 mile of the, where we live. And, but I mean, again, I've travelled further depending on what the deal's been. But I think that once you start getting over a certain distance, you're entering into a different league. You're entering into a situation where, in order to make it financially viable, you've got to be doing bigger places with bigger budgets and whatever. And it's not always worth travelling that far. For a normal average pub singer, once you get past that point, especially with the cost of fuel and all that sort of thing, it just becomes impossible. But in the younger days, we used to travel a lot further, not so much now, but certainly within 100 mile, I suppose.
Do you think nowadays, Geoff, that the business is being spoilt by karaoke singers?
I think it has been, to a degree. I think it did swamp the pool of singers, if you like, and I think anybody with talent should exploit that talent. If you can make money out of it or get enjoyment from it, whichever or both, then you should do that. But I think the fact that you could get up and sing on, maybe 2 songs well on a karaoke doesn't make you an entertainer. It's a lot more demand than what maybe people anticipate. So, yeah, I think it has to a point, but maybe it's helped some people that would have otherwise maybe not even tried, so.
Somebody told me, Geoff, that a lad had lent maybe 20 or 30 songs on the karaoke, and he had karaoke tracks. He went into the pub and he got the same price as somebody as professional as you, with not a good gear and everything. Do you think that's right? And how do you kind of like stop things like that?
I think that talent knows no boundaries. If you're a talented kid and you're in a movie, for example, you could earn millions of pounds or whatever for being 10-year-old or something. It's not an age-related thing necessarily, and it's not necessarily an experience thing, because some people have natural talent. However, I do think that there is a tendency for a lot of venues to think this is how much we pay for a singer, and for that you could get a very wide range of ability. That wouldn't happen in any other job. If you were a talented bricklayer, for example, and older and more experienced, you'd probably be able to earn more money than a 16-year-old apprentice would. So I think sometimes it can be a bit like that. Yeah.
How do you get your work, Geoff?
Some of it through agency, and some of it privately through word of mouth, or some of it might be the venues I've done for years and I know the people and they book me directly, or private functions are usually booked directly. But most of my work is through an agent.
Do you prefer singing in a pub or a club? Because they're two different things, aren't they? You know, in a pub, people just go out and get wrecked.
Both have their advantages and disadvantages. Sometimes you get better pub. A pub has a better atmosphere sometimes, and you get a bit more mixture of ages, and it's a bit more lively and a bit up for it. But then you've got the downside of it. You're not so distant from the audience. You're a bit more vulnerable in a pub, especially if it gets a little bit too lively. But then in a club, you may be a bit more protected. Usually clubs have stages. You've got maybe, you know, older people in there who are a bit more well-behaved. But then sometimes it might be a little bit more low-key from a performance point of view, you know. So again, it's like each has their advantages and their disadvantages, and I do a mixture of both, you know.
Just kind of like coming to the closure of this, tell us about, you went to Tenerife to sing, didn't you, Geoff?
Yes. Yeah, that was 10 years ago now, or coming into, well, 2014 it was.
Wow, time flies.
Yeah, it's a long time ago now. I went there to just on a Women of Prayer, really. I didn't have any work to go to. I went there, turned up, went round and made my name known. And I worked mainly as Meatloaf tribute there. Yeah, sort of did a summer season, sort of 5 months I was there. That was pretty successful.
Is that kind of work still around, Geoff? People can go abroad and work?
Well, the only issue we've got now, certainly with Tenerife and the European Union countries, is since we left the EU, it's not quite so easy to do because obviously when I went there, we were still part of the EU, and you could go there, fill a few forms in, and basically you were legal to live and work there. That's not the case now. It's quite complicated, you know. Yeah, it wouldn't be easy for anybody unless they happen to have an EU passport to go and work there now. It's, you know, you would have to seek your own personal advice really on your own circumstances, but it's certainly not as easy as when I did it.
Would you, looking at yourself now, would you change anything that you've done? Would you change anything?
I probably wish I'd started younger because I was nearly 30 when I did my first actual singing gig. I had worked, as I say, DJ and karaoke, worked for bands as a technician and stuff before that. But I never really saw myself at that point as a decent enough singer, you know, to make money out of it. And it was only the karaoke, which we've just been talking about, you know, have too many people, you know, the karaoke create too many singers. I suppose it created me. So, yeah, if it hadn't been for that, maybe, who knows, I would never have given it a go, like as a full professional singer. But I did, and it worked, and here we are now. So I suppose, yeah, just starting younger maybe would be one thing. And I wish I'd kept up playing an instrument. By now, I'm sure from being now, I would be pretty good at it by now if I'd stuck at it and put the effort in.
For the viewers that are watching this podcast, Geoff, it's all about learning from each other, and you've certainly got some great stories and great tips and advice, as always. I mean, you're still always there to help people that need help. I've heard you helping many people, and you go do shows where you raise money, charity shows and things like that. You're always willing to help people. What tips would you give a budding singer coming into the business now?
Well, listen to the right people. I think, you know, in any trade or profession, you can learn a lot from the older people, more than you can from the younger people, especially people who remember the pre-technology period, if you like, before we had computers and all this kind of thing. Because if you can learn to do something the old-fashioned way, then doing it with technology makes it easier. I suppose it's like, you know, when you go to school, you don't learn how to add up by using a computer. You learn how to add up on paper with a pencil first. Before you do it the easy way, you learn the hard way. So I think, you know, if you've learned the hard way, then the easy way is icing on the cake. Buy the best gear you can afford. Do what you think's right for you. Don't listen to too many other people. And yeah, just try things for yourself. People ask, oh, what's the best microphone? What's the best speakers? Go and find out for yourself. Try them and see what suits you, because what suits one person and what one person's idea of what's good doesn't necessarily work for everybody.
That's
So yeah, just
fantastic.
go your own way.
That's fantastic advice. I really believe in that because, you know, we all have out that there's so many different PAs, there's so many different microphones, cables, you know, there's some crazy people who buy £100 cables when they're probably not needed, you know.
No,
So, you know, what you say is absolutely correct. And sadly nowadays, there's a lack of music shops as well now, Geoff.
there is
You know,
like physical music shops.
sadly there's none in Hull, and I think, you know, it won't be long before probably music shops are mainly just online, which is very difficult because you can't go try the gear yourself. So that means you'd have to try your friend's gear or something like that, which, you know, it is becoming more and more challenging. In the next couple of episodes, we've got a couple of agents coming on here to give their advice as well on the business, which is pretty good. And for the viewer's point of view, I'd like to really thank Geoff for his time today. He's a busy lad, and next time we're going to have hopefully him and his partner to do the Meatloaf tribute, and I'm sure there's some fantastic tales to come from that, Geoff. So that's going to be very interesting. So from me, from Geoff, episode 11, ladies and gents, please subscribe, get your friends to watch it because Geoff gives some great advice. And even if you've been in the business a long time, you know, even one little tip makes a big difference. Yeah, Geoff?
Yeah, it certainly does. Yeah, just make sure you listen to, you know, enough people to formulate your own opinion about everything, because at the end of the day, we're all different, aren't we?
We are, Geoff, yeah. Thank you from me. Thank you from Geoff.
And thank you for having me.
It's been fantastic, mate. Wouldn't have wished for anything else.